I think I've always had a really strong feeling that people should act to make this a better society, that there should be fairness in the world. My desire to keep working to make the earth a better place, to make the society a better place, is intrinsic in my being. I just remember being a young kid and thinking, I have to make a difference in this world. I grew up during the Vietnam War era, and my third grade teacher had an art camp. And she and her boyfriend taught us art, and they were wonderful, and they talked about politics, and they talked about the Vietnam War. And it turned out that her boyfriend was a draft dodger, and the FBI came in and arrested him right in front of us as a third grader. And that made an impression, as did all of the bodies that I saw on TV. That was a piece of, this can't be the best the world can be. I've got to do my little part to make it better. When I was 14, I was protesting supermarkets that were taking grapes and lettuce that weren't from the unionized farm workers, because the farm laborers were being paid terribly, living in squalid conditions, and nothing had been done. And then when I was a sophomore in high school, the worst hurricane since 1780, I think, hit Honduras and all of Latin America, and thousands of people died, hundreds of thousands were displaced. And I went to an assembly at school and asked everybody to skip a meal and donate, and we raised over $1,000. And then when I got into college, the Greenpeace movement had started, and I went to McGill up in Montreal, and that's where the SEAL campaign was based out of. From the time I was 19, I was working to stop the slaughter of baby seals. After that, I went to stop the slaughter of whales. I have a special bond with whales. I went on to co-found Greenpeace USA. I started protesting and just trying to change the world. And then I recognized that there's a bigger system. And in order to make real change, you need to change laws, or you need to bring lawsuits. So I decided that I would go and become an environmental lawyer. The thing that was most pressing was toxic waste. And there were people living in communities that had been flooded by chemicals from the surrounding industry, who in one case literally were living in houses that had lethal doses of dry cleaning compounds coming up through their floor. And so I worked representing the communities to get them clean water, clean air, the contamination cleaned up. I worked with corporations to change their practices. I worked with developers who would go in and buy a contaminated site, clean it up, and turn it into something useful. The pressing issue that I wanted to work on was climate change. Not the big climate change, not the carbon dioxide, which is critical, but a piece, the gases that were put in refrigeration and air conditioning to replace the ozone depleting chemicals were terrible. They were hundreds or thousands of times as bad for the climate as carbon dioxide. The emissions from refrigerated gases were going to offset everything that was promised under the Paris Accord. So I worked to get a phase down of those chemicals, which is going to stop 100 billion tons of CO2 equivalent greenhouse gases from going into the atmosphere by 2050. It's a piece. It's not going to cure climate change, but it's going potentially stop up to a degree of warming by 2100, which just gives us more time to get the carbon dioxide problem under control. I developed rhomboamyeloneuropathy, which just basically means that all of my nerves from my brainstem down are being attacked by my immune system, and all of my pain nerves are screaming all the time. I don't have heat regulation. I used to walk 2 to 8 miles a day with my dog through the woods, and now I can't walk more than a few dozen yards without needing assistance because it just gets so painful. My doctor at the Mayo Clinic just published an article on the 41 cases of myeloneuropathy they've seen in the last 30 years, which is why I'm not walking for research into myeloneuropathy. Mm-hmm. It's an extremely rare disease. What's happening with my body seems to keep happening no matter what. I've had 2 rounds of chemo. I've been on dozens of drugs, and I'm on these infusions once a week, which slow it down. If the pain gets really bad, the only thing I can do is lie in a chair and do nothing. Because the more active I am, the more I do, the more I hurt. I meditate a lot. It's my best pain reliever. It makes it so when the pain gets really serious, I can not focus on it and can live through it. If I roll 8 or 10 miles, which I've done in training, it's more painful that night. Fortunately, I get what I call a reset every night because I don't do anything. So when I sleep, everything sort of relaxes and the muscle spasms stop. And so I wake up in the morning and the pain is dropped to a third or a half of what it was the night before, and I just start over and do it again. I've learned that if I can engage my mind, I don't feel the pain as much. And so doing this, keeping busy, is a way to push my disease into the background. I don't want my disease to define me. I thought when I came up with the idea, okay, great, crazy old guy in a wheelchair going across Massachusetts with this really cute dog, great story, and it can be used to talk about hunger. And I wasn't trying to put my disease out front. I was just trying to create a space to talk about hunger, how devastating the pandemic has been, and what we are experiencing and will experience from climate